So there's a great story on The Blaze yesterday. It was written and updated. Last I saw it was last night. Fundraiser for Dallas salon owner Shelley Luther explodes by the minute after she is jailed for refusing to close her business. And actually, that's not why she was jailed. She was jailed because she refused to apologize to the judge, who called her selfish for opening the salon up. In that, yesterday, we played the audio of her where she said, "I'm not selfish. I have to disagree with you." I'm quoting, "When you say that I'm selfish, sir, because feeding my kids is not selfish. I have hairstylists that are going hungry because they'd rather feed their kids. So, sir, if you think the law is more important than kids being fed, then go ahead with your decision. But I am not going to shut the salon." So she wouldn't apologize and she wouldn't shut the salon. So he put her in jail. Well, we talked about this as an outrage yesterday, and everybody seems to agree with that. Well, I shouldn't say every. Our audience certainly agrees with that. The GoFundMe page that was set up to help her with her legal woes, last night, let's see, at the time of this writing, the GoFundMe page has received more than $336,000 and rapidly continuing. I checked it about 6 this morning. Stu, can you check it real quick? The Shelley Luther GoFundMe page. When I saw it, it was about 500,000. It was just about to crack 500,000 this morning. What is it now? Do you know?
Just over 500,000 now. Mm-hmm.
Just over 500,000. And I think this is fantastic, really fantastic. Now, the governor came out yesterday and said the attorney general, in disagreeing with the excessive action by the Dallas judge, compliance with executive orders is important to ensure public safety. However, surely there are less restrictive means to achieving that goal than jailing a Texas mother. That seems a little light, but we do have to have some rule of law, and I think that we're in a really dicey situation. These are not laws. That's the problem. These are all being done by, in many cases, unelected officials that are just in a department of whatever, and they're deciding. Now, this judge, I think, was just way out of line. So we have today, in about an hour and 15 minutes, we have the Texas Attorney General, who wrote yesterday, "I find it outrageous and out of touch that during this national pandemic, a judge in a county that actually released hardened criminals for fear of contracting COVID-19 would jail a mother for operating her hair salon in an attempt to put food on the family's table. It is a shameful abuse of judicial discretion." Amen. I love Ken Paxton. I think he is just outrageously great. So we're going to find out what he's going to do. Now, California, they've decided to do something else. We're going to talk to a restaurant owner. It's actually it's a wine bar owner who found himself in a situation where he had to open up because he said, I'm going to lose my business. So I don't know what to do. I have to open to be able to save my business. And he said, I'm willing to go to jail for that. Well, in California, they didn't threaten jail. They said, we'll take your license away. Now, that's an extra $20,000 expense that he had paid to get his license in California. If they take it away, he won't have a business. So now he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He's not going to jail. He'll just get his business license pulled. And so that won't be as bad because people won't be going to jail, which they think is so horrible. Well, my life being destroyed is probably worse than going to jail for 7 days. But these are the kinds of things that we're now looking at. And California is looking at this because the sheriff's department are not doing it. There's a sheriff in Riverside County. His name is Chad Bianco. And he said, I'm not going to do it. I want to read parts of his statement. He said 8 weeks ago, Governor Newsom and other officials participated in something never done before in our nation's history. He ordered residents into their homes, closed their businesses, made them wear masks, forbid them from going to church, and eliminated constitutional freedoms put into place over 200 years ago. man, I want to contribute to this guy's campaign if he's running again. In the name of public health crisis, our civil liberties and constitutional protections have been placed on hold. Officials have asked a lot of residents over the last 2 months as part of a greater effort to flatten the curve and prevent hospitals from being completely overwhelmed by corona patients. This is something that we all agreed on. That's how they got us into this. It worked. What isn't being emphasized is that 2,000 of the 4,300 people who have tested positive have already recovered and returned to work. What that means is that out of 2.5 million people in Riverside County, we only have 2,300 residents positive with this virus. Statistically, that is less than 0.1%. He said the discussion should be based on facts and data, not protections and fear. He said he didn't enforce the stay-at-home order from the beginning. He said, I knew people could be trusted to act as responsible adults, and I was correct. As we continue, I will reinforce my position. Not only do we not have the resources to enforce unreasonable orders, I refuse to make criminals out of business owners, single moms, and otherwise healthy individuals for exercising their constitutional rights. I believe Riverside County, this is in California, I believe Riverside County residents are responsible enough to proceed cautiously. And then he goes on, he says, there cannot be a new normal. Fundamental freedoms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Any new normal is a direct attack on those basic rights which set us apart and make us the greatest country in the world. I love you, Sheriff Bianco. I love you. I don't know anything else about you, but I love you. Let me show you the other side of the country. This is coming from de Blasio. De Blasio said that he will not permit people to gather for protests. Okay, let's just go through the First Amendment. You have a right to assemble. You have a right to assemble. You have a right to petition the government. In other words, I can get together and protest with a bunch of people and say, I don't agree with this, what the government is doing. You have that God-given right. Well, no, you really don't. You need a license to protest now. I need a license? Why do I need a license to protest? No. This is the new civil rights movement. Right now, this is the civil rights movement. Boy, I hope you read your Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King acted in a very specific way, and it is the only way to win. But this is the new civil rights movement. These people are taking away your right to petition the government, your right to gather and gather in a crowd, because you want to petition the government. You're losing your rights to free speech because Google, which is now the public square, I don't care if it's a private company, they have protections because they're a platform. If they want to edit, then they don't get the protections of being a platform, period. They're now the public square. Your voice is not allowed in the public square if you disagree with the authoritative truth. The authoritative truth, that line should chill you to the bone. The authoritative truth, well, it used to be the church back in the dark ages. Now it's a new church. It's a new church of, I don't even know, science. I can't even say that because a lot of scientists disagree. They're banning doctors and scientists from what they want to say. So let's just continue. You've got the loss of assembly, the loss of petitioning your government, without a license, so they'll approve it. I mean, what is this, the Soviet Union? You've lost the free press, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion. Why do I say freedom of religion? Have you heard what the governor has said now in Illinois? That it may be at least a year before people are allowed to go back to church. Excuse me? Excuse me? At least a year before people are going back to church? I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I refuse. No. Now, I could choose not to go to church, but you are not shutting my church down for a year. No. My church was ahead of all of the other states, all of the other local municipalities that have just turned unbelievably draconian. They came out early before anybody was doing anything, and they said, we're going to cancel all church services. We're pulling our missionaries home from around the world, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they have already started sending missionaries back out. They haven't opened the services yet. But that's my church deciding. My church has a right to decide when they're going to meet in their own building. And then each individual church member has a right to decide when they're going to attend. Who do you think you are? By the way, none of these things are laws. None of them are laws. Laws need to be passed. These are dictates. Yes, the root word of dictator. A dictate comes from a dictator. Now, let me give you one bright spot. Except it was reported yesterday in Esquire as the hearing was absurd. And I want to give you this, but before I let you hear what she said. Wisconsin Supreme Court justices were hearing a challenge, blah, 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 on the stay-at-home order brought by Republicans, yada, 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 yada. The main centering attraction was Justice Rebecca Bradley, who was placed on the court as part of the enduring legacy of former Governor Scott Walker. In discussing the governor's order, as an assistant attorney general, Colin Roth appeared to be rethinking his career choice because Bradley went full Glenn Beck. Never go full Glenn Beck, according to Esquire. Then they quote her, and this is full Glenn Beck. You tell me what the problem is. My question for you is, where is in the Constitution? You know what? Let me have her say it. We have the audio. Could you play it quickly?
My question for you is, where in the Constitution did the people of Wisconsin confer authority on a single unelected cabinet secretary to compel almost 6 million people to stay at home and close their businesses and face imprisonment if they don't comply, with no input from the legislature, without the consent of the people? Isn't it the very definition of tyranny for one person to order people to be imprisoned for going to work, among other ordinarily lawful activities? Where does the Constitution say that's permissible, counsel?
Then she goes on, I'll direct your attention to another time in history where the Supreme Court said the need for action was great and the time was short, and that justified, and I'm quoting, assembling together and placing under guard all those Japanese of Japanese ancestry in assembly centers during World War II. Could the secretary, under this broad delegation of legislative powers or legislative-like power, order people out of their homes into centers where they're properly social distanced in order to combat the pandemic? The point of my question is there are limits, Constitution or statutory. There have to be some, don't there, counsel? This was mocked as being full-on Glenn Beck. I'm proud if that's full-on Glenn Beck. That's fantastic that I would be associated with the Constitution and common sense, defending common people. Thank you. Thank you to this judge. This judge is only saying the things that most Americans have grown up believing in. That we don't listen to people who are not elected officials. Thank you, Justice Rebecca Bradley, for your balls to say these things.